Hey everyone, this is me, Undead Viking, and this is the game Cosmic Pioneers. Cosmic Pioneers is for 2 to 4 players, and each player is taking on the role of a space entrepreneur who has traveled to this distant galaxy where they are going to attempt to populate and control as many planets as possible while doing battle with the other players and also the alien life forms that don't really want you there to begin with. It is a area control kind of Euro-esque game with some antagonistic qualities that I enjoyed a great deal. And one of the best things about the game is the actual setting up of the game, because of the drafting technique that you go through. It randomly determines what type of planets, what type of aliens, and what scenario you're going to be undertaking in that particular instance of this, or a session of this game. So let me show you how this game works, then we'll come back here and I'll talk a little bit more about Cosmic Pioneers. Alright, cool. Alright, this is Cosmic Pioneers, and I have gone ahead and set up the game, but one of the cool things about this game is actually the setup, so let me just describe how that works. Okay, I've already got a scenario right there, but you do get a scenario deck that has several different options available to you, and you're going to randomly draw one of these, or you could decide amongst the players and, you know, pick the one that you want to play. But the one that I drew randomly for this particular situation is Mineral Trade, and so just for this game and this game only, we have the option, if you go to a red planet and you collect goods from that planet, and then you go to a green planet and you deliver them. For each good that you deliver, you'll get a colonist and 100 coins. So now colonists are good because this game is about controlling planets and taking control of them and having all your colonists, as many as possible, out there, because that's worth victory points in the game. And money is very important in the game, because at the end of the game, for every 500 credits you have, you'll get a point, and plus you can use money, you can turn it in to improve your ship and gain special abilities, or I shouldn't say special, but like extended abilities that your ship has. Each person will get one of these sheets. There are 4 of them, and each one of them has a different spacefaring captain. And each one of them will have a name, like this is Seraph, and then it has a special ability of Seraph. And this says you may duplicate one of the life forms on your ship as long as you have a free cargo spot for them. Now, life form could be either a colonist or an alien that you may have picked up, but you can duplicate them, obviously. So just quickly going through this, Fraser can unload to any space on a planet. Normally, I'm going to explain this as I go here, planets have these spaces on the bottom. The green spaces are for colonists, normally, and that's how you place them down. However, they can, you know, control more and more. But the purple ones are where aliens are placed, and they move from right to left. Colonists move from left to right. However, Fraser has the ability of going ahead and placing them in any of the locations. And if it's full, they can take the place and kill the life form that happens to be in that spot when you place them down. Accord here, you may load other players' colonists as if they were your own, which is a really dastardly thing, because you can just go there and grab other people's colonists, yank them off, and then take them to some planet that maybe is has a bunch of aliens on it and probably are going to be eaten by them in that situation. And then finally, Frederick, you may transform any or all life forms on your ship into credits, which is also pretty nasty. You can just turn any alien into 200 credits. You can turn your colonists into money as well. So just some special abilities that each person has. You might notice that there's these little spots here. As you improve your ship, you will place these black cubes on those locations and control those, and so you can try and show what your extended powers are. Just going to go over those quickly. If you land on the same spot as another player, you can choose to battle them, in which case you're both going to roll a d6, and if you manage to beat them, you can force them to crash land on a planet that's nearby the planet that you fight them. With this, you get a +1. With this, you get a +2. That's on your d6 roll. And then if you win, you get 300 credits from them if you win that battle. Over here, it's the number of cargo spaces you have available. Normally, you only have 2 spaces of cargo available, and you can only have colonists or goods in those locations. When you upgrade this, you can have 3 colonists or goods, and finally, if you have this, you have all 4, and all plus you can get aliens and load aliens onto your ship and take them to another planet and drop them off. With bombs, you normally, like you roll a die, you have this die right here. You can bombard planets to try to destroy the aliens and or colonists that are there. This is colonists, this is aliens, you can probably already determine that. With the first upgrade, you can drop a bomb and you are able to kill one of whatever you roll. With this, whatever you roll, you get to roll d6 and you kill that many of it. So if you rolled aliens and you rolled a d6 of 4, you'd kill 4 aliens. And then finally here, you just get to pick. You want to kill colonists or you want to kill aliens, then you roll a d6. You have to kill that number. So like if there were 3 colonists on the planet, one of them happened to be yours, and for whatever reason you decide you're going to bomb them, if you rolled a 4, you'd have to kill all 3 colonists, including the one you have. You aren't the excess won't carry over to aliens. You just kill the ones that you want. And finally, engines. You can move 2 spaces, move 3 spaces, and move 5 spaces. You do not roll a d6 for movement. You can just move up to that number of spaces. All right. So I mentioned I was going to show you how the game is set up, and I am going to do that. So before the game starts, you've picked this particular event or like mission for this particular game, and then from this deck, the alien deck with all these different alien races, you have worm aliens, you have bug aliens, you have lizard aliens, and so on and so forth. You'll take one of each of those cards out and you'll shuffle them up and you will draw 2 cards. For this time, I drew slimes and the squids. And so the slime and squid cards, and actually I'll just pick them out here because I think most of them are in this. So like the slime cards have this little this green planet, and it has a 3 by it. And the squid cards have a blue planet and 3 by it. So you take that 3 and 3, and then you add it to the number that's on the mission. So in this case, you have 2 green planets plus 3 is 5. 2 red planets, that stays the same, and then 4 blue planets. And then you take those particular planets out of this giant planet deck here, and you shuffle them up and you set them up in this ring that you see around you. So the idea is that in the center here, this would be where the star is, and these planets are in orbit around that particular star. You start, all the players will start on the jump gate over here, and then they will travel around the board, stopping at these planets and doing certain things. So that's how you get it set up. And I really like the setup portion of the game. I like the fact that it's going to be different each and every time. You're going to have different planets. Sometimes lots of aliens will show up. Like if you drew like this, so you have black planets, which are the bugs, the worm planets, which are these yellow ones, and then the red planets, which are the lizards. But then you also drew like the squids and the slimes for your 2 aliens. You'd have all kinds of different aliens and so forth. And so you'd have, or in this case, we only have 3 aliens available. We're only going to have the slimes, the squids, and the lizards. That's just what's going to be. So it's kind of cool how each game is going to be different and kind of mixed up, and is going to be like a different experience each time that you play it. So after you've gone ahead and set that up, you're going to take, this is upside down, I apologize, you're going to take the deck of cards and you're going to put 1 type of alien for each card, each planet. So we're going to have 5 slime cards in there, we're going to have 4 squid cards in there, and we're going to have 2 cards of the lizards in there. And that's important because aliens events can happen when you go ahead and visit these different planets. Alright, so now you'd be ready to go and you're ready to roll, and you're just going to determine whoever is going to be the first player. You can figure that anyway. You can roll a d6. I think the rules state that whoever was the last person to read a sci-fi novel, which would be a pretty hotly contested argument amongst my friends, but regardless, then you're ready to go. And so on your turn, what you're going to do is, depending upon the speed and power of your ship, you're just going to take your ship and you're going to move it a certain number of spaces. And you're going to move to whatever planet, you're going to stop at that planet. Now, if you manage to land on the same spot as somebody else, that's when the fight occurs. I'll explain that in just a little bit. But as long as a fight isn't occurring, you will go ahead with the rest of your turn. It should be mentioned before I go too far. The battle that happens, whoever loses is going to end up like crash landed like this, but you don't lose a turn. So you just would stand on your next turn, you just stand it up and you would move normally. However, if you are the attacker and you lose, you don't get to do your full turn, but I'll explain that when I get to the actual attack function of the turn order that you go through. So if I was the yellow player and I moved to this location on my turn, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at this planet. I'm going to see what the possibilities are here. So here it says if I roll a 2, I'm going to lose 200 credits. If I roll a 3, I'm going to lose 2 colonists, not on my ship, but I'm going to lose 2 colonists that are on the planet. So just remember that. That is not affecting any colonists that you might have on your ship at this time. And then here, on a 4 through 6, you're going to add colonists to the planet, and from your reserves. You don't have to have them on your ship. Now, you could be carrying colonists on your ship, and then later on you can deploy them out there. But in this situation, if you were lucky enough to roll 4 through 6, you go ahead and you add those particular colonists on there. So if I rolled this die, and I'm just going to kind of cheat here so I can just make it happen, and I rolled a 6, yellow would take 3 colonists from their supply, and they start on the left and move to the right like so. That is how that works. And each one of these planets is different in some way. Some of them are just, kind of bad, where it's like, oh, it's like -5 colonists from the planet, -2 colonists from the planet. But the thing is that, this planet, you might not have any colonists on this planet. So you're like, sure, I'll go there, fine. Because if I roll a 5 or a 6, I get 700 coins, and that's a pretty good deal. Down here, here's one where it's like pretty good, going here in total. You might lose 100 coins, but you're almost always going to add you're probably almost always going to add colonists to the planet. Plus, if you roll a 6, you get 300 coins. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, none of these planets have a 1 on them. Well, if you roll a 1 on the die, that is when an alien event occurs, and that's when this deck comes into play. So you take the top card of the deck, you're going to draw it, you're going to look at it, and it's going to say slime. So if there is existing slimes on planets already, then you will go ahead and you will go through the process of doing what the card tells you as far as the slime goes. If there aren't existing slimes on these planets already, then you're going to go ahead and add a slime. And remember, you're going to start on the right and work your way to the left. So in this case, there are no slimes. But normally, if there were slimes, double number of slimes filling only unoccupied spaces. So if there was a slime already on a planet, you'd increase it to 3. So for whatever reason, if there was a slime there, you would double the number of slimes. So you just go ahead and add a second slime on, like so. But in this situation, we have no slime, so we add a slime to each one of these green planets. We go from there. Now, there's other things that can happen. So let's say we have a squid over here, and let's just put another colonist on there for fun. So we have a squid. And so when you draw the squid reaction, you have a squid, place a new squid on the adjacent left space. If there is a life form in that space, kill it. So you would take another squid from the supply, you'd place it on there, and you'd kill that poor red colonist like so. And so obviously then, and I'll just show you one more, like the lizard, place move lizard left 1 space, kill any life form in the space. If lizard cannot remove lizard from the planet. So I like the lizards. So you have a situation, let's say you have a lizard on this planet, and you have these colonists on here that other players have placed on there. And slowly but surely, every time you get a lizard result, the lizard just works his way to the left, eating and killing these colonists one by one, until finally he just leaves the planet because he's eaten and killed everything else that's on there. So, that's one of those cool things about this game, that each one of these aliens kind of reacts in a different way. Let me show you, the worms. The worm, kill the 2 rightmost life forms, then move the worm on the space to the left. If there's no more life forms on the planet, remove the worms. So the worms just slowly eat and kill things on the planet. And then the bug. If there's a life form adjacent to the bug, replace it with another bug. So the bugs are just kind of eating the things and killing them. So you can see the aliens or whatever, as they affect, and they're going to mess with the other players. And it's not, as I said, if the planet happens to not have like these 2 lizard planets or whatever, if they didn't have the aliens on them, and you drew a lizard card from the alien deck, you would add them on there. So if one had gone through the whole process and eaten them all, and this one was working its way, you would then place it on there. You always are going to place an alien on the planet of their color if there isn't an alien already on that spot. So that is what's called the adventure or the Jumpgate phase. And it's called the Jumpgate phase because if you land back on the Jumpgate during your turn, Then you can go there and you can dump any cargo you have on your ship, and you can load up as many colonists as your ship can hold. It's up to you how many you get. And then finally, you can, I should say finally, you gain 200 credits just for going there, plus an additional 100 credits for each planet you control. You control a planet by having the most colonists on that planet. If you're tied, nobody controls it. You don't share control. And then you can upgrade your ship once for every 500 credits you've collected. And so you can go through, and notice 500 credits for that you've collected. You don't spend that on the on it. You still keep those credits, because remember, this game is about collecting money and trying to earn those points, because money's worth it at the end. So during phase 3, if you are on a planet, and you're over here, and even though there's like that alien there, and you have colonists, you can go through what's called deployment. And actually, here, I'll go here, for example. I'm not going to put a slime on there for fun. So if I was there and I had a goods token that I collected from a red planet, I could drop that on there, and which would then be consumed. But then I would earn the bonus that the scenario currently has. I get 100 credits for doing so, and I could put that on my cargo. And credits don't take up space. I should mention that before I go any further. But you put them on your cargo because you leave them there to show how much you've gained as the game progresses, so people can have an idea of how much money you've made. And then gain a colonist that I'd place on my ship, on my colony as well, or in my ship as well, for doing so. And then you can deploy things on there. So if you have colonists, you could deploy them on there. And maybe when you rolled this, you only got the plus 100 coins. You didn't get bonus colonists, so you can deploy colonists that you have straight onto the planet to gain control over it, so you can be worth points later. Finally, the last thing you can do after you're gone through those first 3 phases is you can bombard. And when you bombard, you do exactly as I said before. I don't know why Green would bombard their own people, but they could maybe want to kill that, possibly get rid of this slime that's on there. Maybe they have upgraded bombs and they can just pick one, which side, and they can just destroy that. Or they can roll their die and see, and hopefully not get a colonist and destroy their own colonist. But then that's the last thing you do. You go through that bombard action that I described earlier. Now, I mentioned the combat, and I said I was going to come back to that. I'm just going to come back to that and talk about it briefly. If you have a situation where 2 ships end up in the same spot at the same time, then you are going to have a combat. Each player, and this isn't a situation where it's like you can choose to do it or not do it. You basically, 2 players cannot coexist in the exact same spot at the exact same time. You're going to have a situation where combat ensues. So both players are going to roll the d6. They're going to add whatever bonus they have. Whoever happens to win is going to make the other person crash land on a planet near them. He couldn't go here because there's a player right there, so they'd force the player to crash land on that location. When you crash land, you unload all your cargo onto the planet's surface. That includes colonists, aliens, and any trade goods that you might have. Any colonists or aliens that don't fit on the planet are killed. The crashing player chooses what survives and what order in which life forms are unloaded on the planet. So you could choose to unload your colonists first, and then, and if you had an alien left over, you could then just say, well, there's no space for the aliens, the alien dies. Then if that person, the yellow, was the aggressor and they were the attacker, as I said before, their turn would be over, except for the fact that they get to do the adventure phase. They get to roll the die for the planet they happen to be on, and then resolve that. But they wouldn't be able to go through the deployment, and they wouldn't be able to bombard as well. As soon as it is their next turn, they just would right their ship, and they would continue on with their turn as normal. So the game continues for 12 rounds. After 12 rounds are over, every person will then stop. You will, as I said, you get 1 victory point for each colonist that you have out on a planet. Colonists on your ship do not count for any victory points. You gain 1 point for every 500 credits you have earned as the game in your cargo, rounded down. And then for each planet you control, having the most colonists on it, you gain plus 5 victory points for that. So obviously, controlling the planets is probably going to be the most fortuitous way of earning your points. So there you go. if you the game, like I said, does not have a bunch of rules to it. This was a type of game that, like, if my daughter hadn't already been well versed in these games that she and I play, this would have been that perfect bridge, I think, from kind of an easier game and moving into that, like, slightly more difficult, slightly more complex version of a game. This is definitely, in my opinion, on the lighter scale as far as like these area control type games go. But I love the theme and I love the random setup. I think that kind of drafting random board is genius, and it makes the game fresh and keeps it fun and interesting. And this, strangely, was a game that, like, my gaming group really took to. I think it was because of the adversity involved and because of the fact that, like, there was that, once again, game beyond the game of people, like, making contracts and saying, hey, don't attack me here, let's take this guy down, that sort of thing, and, like, working against like certain players that we thought were getting into the lead and trying to, like, broker deals, if you will. So there you go. That's Cosmic Pioneers. I'll tell you more about why I really liked it in my final thoughts, which I will do right now. There you go. Cosmic Pioneers. Thank you very much for taking the time to learn how to play the game. Like I said, these are my final thoughts, and basically, I knew that my daughter and I would enjoy playing it. She loves everything to do about like space and gobbledygooky monsters and things like that, and she enjoys that. She really enjoyed watching how the different monsters would react on each different, I shouldn't say monsters, aliens. She really enjoyed how the different alien monsters reacted to their different situations on each one of the different planets, and so she was almost to that point where she was hoping she'd roll a 1 like every single time when she'd land on a planet, and she'd be like, even if she got like 700 credits, she'd be like, oh, I really wanted the slimes to populate, or I really wanted the lizards to eat people, or the bugs to spread out further, and things like that. And so she really took to that part of the game. And I'll have to admit, I do like that game. I like games that have kind of like a life form flow, like a biomass or something like that. And it's fun to kind of watch that game create, and like that kind of like alien intelligence or whatever, like artificial intelligence, I guess would probably be a better word, of the game, kind of propagate itself. And that it adds to the kind of chaos and the randomness of the game. And I think that's what this game is kind of about. It's about each player trying to, achieve some sort of like order out of the chaotic nature of the game. And there's a certain amount of, like, the game is kind of set up in a way to lend itself towards that chaos. And so I found the game to be just kind of that challenge of, like, trying to get my colonists onto the different planets and hoping for the best, hoping other players didn't come and bomb them back to the Stone Age, hoping the monsters or aliens didn't devour them, hoping other players didn't just come and, like, supplant them and move them someplace else and things like that. So it was just one of those things where no matter what you do, it was like that whole glacier. It's like moving 3 feet forward, but moving 4 feet back. And so the person that has the most successful turns was usually just the person that can keep their game in a standstill, keep their footholds in a standstill on the different spots. And I like that. I like that part of the game. And I enjoyed the fact that, the mechanisms are kind of set up against you from the get-go. I think that's why it appealed to my gaming group as well. I mean, I think we enjoyed it because of the fact that even if you weren't being picked on by their players, just like one person rolling a 1 and drawing the right alien card could really mess with you, and then all of a sudden all your plans that you had kind of set up and put into order, somebody just threw a wrench in that, not even like purposely perhaps, but there's a wrench now in that process, and now you got to go back and redo everything and try to start over, and so, like, when you finally get through all 12 turns, it's like you thought you'd have this, like, space empire, and technically probably not really, because it's in shambles, and things are exploding, and being your colonists are being eaten by bugs and lizards and what have you, and you just kind of like raise the white flag and then see who has the most points. And it's, once again, it's one of those kind of also has a journey game. It has that immersion. It has that feel of you doing what the game is setting out to do, and I really enjoyed that a great deal. So there you go. That is Cosmic Pioneers. As I said, it's kind of got a lighter rule set, so if you're looking for a lighter area control game with some chaos and some antagonistic, the game does allow you to like beat on each other. If you're looking for something like that, I think you'd be well versed in checking this one out and seeing if it's something you want to add to your gaming collection. So there you go. If you have any questions about Cosmic Pioneers, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.